Hello! I wasn't originally going to make a review on this show, but after watching it, things need to be talked about. The series Skull Island was released on Netflix a few days ago, and I decided to watch the whole thing in one sitting, because of course I did. This means there is very little time given to speculation on who, what, when, where, how and why, because everything the show has to offer is all there. None of that best faith stuff that I used for She-Hulk is going to be shown here. That being said, what did I think? Produced by Legendary and Warner Brothers, this series is meant to be part of the MonsterVerse franchise. In the show, this is supported by a reference to the start and end of the Kong Skull Island film. The inclusion of a skull crawler, the triple claw mark on Kong's chest, a possible Godzilla reference, and a theory about the Hollow Earth. Given the nearly 3.5 hours the 8 episodes offer us, it must be said this is very little in the way of connective tissue. No monarch in any way, shape or form. No iwi natives. No perpetual storm surrounding the island. None of the wildlife featured in the film, bar the aforementioned skullcrawler. Instead, we get a Skull Island that is simultaneously like all previous iterations combined, and like none of them at all. It does make me think if this was originally made as its own thing, then with minimal effort, reworked to quote-unquote fit into the MonsterVerse. So, already, I are disappoint. Ignoring the terrible meshing with the MonsterVerse, is Netflix's Skull Island alright? As someone who knew naff all about the series, I didn't even watch the trailers, I can say that it's not great. The story is all over the place, and in one particular case, badly presented. It revolves around 2 dads and their sons, a girl, and a crew of mercenaries being stranded on Skull Island after being attacked by Super Squidward. I did wonder how they were going to explain this thing being a thing when it wasn't in the film, but then the show reveals Kong wakes it up later in the series. Well done, you've solved one problem. The rest of the story follows the mercenaries and the dad, the other dad died in episode 1, trying to find a way off Skull Island after finding their sons and daughter. Oh yeah, the woman leading the mercenaries trying to find the girl is her mother. Her being the mother wasn't revealed until later in the series, but I called it as soon as she was revealed to be the mercenary leader, because that's the most obvious thing to do. Bloody hell, we're not even into the worst parts yet. The final plan to escape Skull Island is to lure Kong into fighting Super Squidward, and no joke, this is when Kong actually gets to interact with the story. Before this, he accidentally saves the sons and makes a couple of token appearances. That's right, Kong, the main reason for everyone watching this bloody show, doesn't affect the story until the last episode. Technically he gets episode 7 all to himself, but it's a flashback, and not told by anyone to anyone. So no one knows it except for Kong and the audience, so I don't know why they showed it. Really, they should have left it until the expected Series 2 to be told by one of the islanders to the main characters. All it does is make Kong look like a super simp to his girlfriend, a terrible guardian who nearly gets her killed, and a coward for not facing off against Super Squidward. Which brings me on to another big problem with the series. Making sense, or not in this case. This happens throughout, but episode 7 is the pinnacle of stupid for Netflix's Skull Island. Kong drops a rock off this cliff, which lands on the lizard after a second or two. His girlfriend is then knocked off the same cliff, and she falls for ages. Kong has enough time to throw a lizard away and jump to save her, Then his pet bird has enough time to notice Con failing to catch her and swoop in to save the day. Then the bird flies way into the sky to get rid of a lizard hanging off its leg, only for the lizard to grab the girl as it falls. The lizard and the girl fall all the way back down to Earth and survive, like they just fell over. Then the cliff falls onto them, which the girl survives. Each time the series teases her dying, but then she doesn't, even when she absolutely should have. Like I said, this is all in one scene. An earlier example has the suns sitting on a rock out of reach of sand crabs, and here they look very close to safety. In the next scene, they absolutely are not. I think the graphical artists weren't communicating very well with the storyboarders. Oh, and the girl's dog is said to have followed said girl from one island to another. Yet, he's shown to be pants at swimming to the point of almost drowning right next to dry land. The series doesn't even attempt to explain how he got to Skull Island without swimming, but then there's a lot it doesn't explain. The girl says she's fought and killed several of the island's inhabitants before. She also comments on the effects of the supposed Hollow Earth entrance. And yet, this isn't the island she lived on. Is there a Skull Island Site B somewhere out there? The dad also decides that Skull Island has a connection to the Hollow Earth, something discovered by Monarch in the Skull Island film and expanded upon by future Monarch members in the Monsterverse. And yet, as far as I remember, the dad has no connection to Monarch, so this comes out of nowhere. The Skull Island series is absolutely not self-contained, and definitely expected a Series 2, which was optimistic, which probably explains why it ended so abruptly, and with at least one loose end in the form of a main character being captured by islanders and left behind. Alright, the story's balked. What else is there? The animation is sometimes alright, then other times jarringly bad. Two notable examples from memory are the crocodile chase and a scene with Kong in episode 7. The show is graphically pretty, although still suffering from animation's usual issues. And it also doesn't fit aesthetically or atmospherically with the Skull Island from the Monsterverse, making even greater disconnects from the universe. I couldn't tell you anything about the music, so it's probably okay. Which leaves us with the characters. The best of the characters died in episode 1. The ones we're left with are whiny, sarcastic, a paragon of virtue, a confusing mess of a person, and an asshole as big as the entrance to the Hollow Earth. They're also highly illogical and make stupid decisions left, right, and centre.
We need to run, now!
What? Why?
This is an island full of monsters. Run, you idiot! These decisions are only aided by the world. Like a tree covered in monsters doesn't react to the human and flaming torch standing next to them until the plot requires them to. Or a jungle filled with horrors doesn't have any just when certain choices are made by certain characters, preventing any negative consequences. For a full breakdown, if I can be bothered to do one, I'd probably have to watch the series again and take notes. But for now, ignoring literally everything I just said, I'm sure Skull Island on Netflix is absolutely fine. Oh, and before someone says these things, just because it's fantasy doesn't allow it to not make sense. Just because someone thinks it's meant to be silly doesn't excuse it from a judgment of quality. And just because somebody had fun with it doesn't mean it's good. Bloody hell, this has been overly negative, hasn't it? Let's end on my favourite line from the whole series.
We think it throws whales now.
Why?
My working theory is that it's a dick.